Andy Cohen is not going anywhere when it comes to Bravo or NBCUniversal. They've just renewed his contract until 2027. Not only that, the Traitors cast for season 4 has been revealed. And as you already know, Real Housewives of Potomac star Monique Samuels is returning and revealing that she has been asked at least 7 times to return. She explains why exactly she decided this time around this was the time. Here's your Bravo roundup on this Friday the 13th.
Here we go now.
Welcome back to the Kempire channel, your #1 source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. So we have a bunch of Bravo NBCUniversal related news to talk about. But first, I do want to talk about Traitors because a lot of you have been hitting me up because you know I love Traitors. I think it's a fantastic show. I love the other iterations in the UK. I prefer the UK because it's all unknown people that we can't predict on how they're going to play the game. No matter if you're a Survivor fan or a Housewives fan. Well, I've already had a lot of tea in regards to who was going to be on season 4. If you were at the London show, I had spilled that Nene was going to be a part of this cast, but now it's been revealed that Nene is not. I'm going to reveal to you exclusively, Nene dropped out. Nene was supposed to be. Portia is her replacement. So let's get into this first in regards to the Traitors cast. So they said Housewives and Survivors, Donna, Kelsey, oh my. They said Peacock has announced that the cast for season 4 of its hit reality competition series, The Traitors, which will premiere in early 2026, which feels very long way away. And it is familiar mix of stars from other reality television shows, as well as athletes and a few complete wild cards. They said, once again, the Real Housewives is well represented with 5 stars because it's on Bravo. They really do. Housewives is treated over at Bravo and NBC as like the glory child. And other Bravo celebrities have talked about how they are treated like the redheaded stepchild when it comes to how they're treated versus Real Housewives. So Peacock announced that their season 4 cast, and once again, the Real Housewives will have 5 stars. Dorinda Medley, who was on the last season, she made such a big stink about being killed off so early. So of course they're like, oh, we'll bring you back this time around. I'm sure she made a big stink behind the scenes as well. Lisa Rinna will be a part of the cast. Candace Dillard-Bassett, if you are a Club Kempire member, I already revealed a lot of this information. Caroline Stanbury, I don't know if I spilled that in my podcast episode, but I knew about Caroline returning. Well, making a return to television on Traitors. And Portia Williams from the Bravo franchise making their way to Scotland. They will be joined in the castle by 3 Survivor players. Rob Casternino, Yam Yam Arasho, Natalie Anderson, also from The Amazing Race, as well as 2 Big Brother contestants, Ian Terry and Tiffany Mitchell. Come on, Cookout. She's actually a really good player, so it will be interesting to see. I'm happy to see her return. And representatives from The Bachelor, who cares? Colton Underwood, Dancing with the Stars, Mark Ballas. RuPaul's Drag Race, Monet Exchange. That will be interesting to watch. Top Chef, Kristen Keish, and Love Island, Maura Higgins, and Robert Rausch. Of course, there are also some other wild cards thrown into the mix. Olympic figure skater Tara Lipinski and Johnny Ware. Johnny Ware is a big personality, so that should be a good mix of personalities. Will be a part of the season 4 cast, as well as K-pop singer Eric Nam, comedian Ron Funches, One Tree Hill star Stefan Coletti, actor Michael Rappaport, and America's most famous football mom, Donna Kelsey. Did I say Kelchi before? Sorry, Kelsey, mother of Travis and Jason. That would be interesting because I know nothing about her. So it's interesting that she's doing reality television. I don't know how I feel about that. How do you guys feel about that? Okay. Anyway, let's move on. So that's the cast. That is the cast of the new season. I don't know who I'm rooting for just yet. And it won't automatic because are there any housewives that I would root for? Candace, I think Candace would be actually interesting because she's smart and witty. And for those that are going to miss her being a part of Real Housewives of Potomac, this is where you'll get your feel of her. And for those that were saying, oh, Candace dropped the bag in regards to coming on Real Housewives of Potomac, I have to remind you guys, Candace was not fired from Potomac. They would have rolled out the red carpet for Candace to share her pregnancy and life after pregnancy on the show right now. Please understand that. So for those that saw the pictures of her at NBCUniversal and things like that, well, that was because she was talking about Traitors. But if you're a Club Kempire member, you already knew that. Anyway, I'm not a Candace stan, but I'm fair. Let's move on from there and talk about Andy Cohen. Andy Cohen, and I believe this. I believe Andy is the one that puts out these rumors that he's not returning. It's the oldest play in the game book of trying to get people like, no, Andy can't leave. Oh my God, we're gonna miss Daddy Andy at the network. The network will be nothing without Andy. I feel like this was a contract ploy because you remember these contracts are discussed for months before they finalize and come to terms. And NBCU, based on what I'm hearing, there are a lot of cutbacks in a lot of different ways. And I know what you're thinking. Why would they cut back on Andy? Because they're cutting back across the board. So I'm sure Andy wants a certain price because Andy feels like he is almighty. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind, they've also had a lot of lawsuits involving Andy and what he's been accused of. Please understand, the suits are going to come in, well, Andy, like, you're fantastic, but we can't give you the big money that you want this season because we're facing a lot of legal backlash because of you and your behavior behind the scenes. And remember, we all speculated some of his behavior on Watch What Happens Live in the last few months was like, oh, maybe Andy is leaving because of the things he was saying and doing on his Watch What Happens Live show. But now Andy has been finally renewed. They said Bravo has renewed Andy Cohen's late night show, Watch What Happens Live, through 2027, keeping the former TV executive at the brand for years to come as a host and producer. NBCUniversal also extended Cohen's first look deal through 2028. Cohen will also continue to host reunions and specials and serve as the executive producer on the Real Housewives franchise. And please understand, when he's making these contract negotiations, he's saying, I must be the host of the Traitors reunion. I must be the host of Married to Medicine, shows that he does not produce. And then the shows that he produced, obviously are going to be like, fine, you can be the producer of it. Even though we feel like, the execs probably do feel like, well, let's change it up a bit. Yeah, you're fantastic at your job, but let's shake it up a bit and have different hosts for the reunion to actually draw more attention to your shows that are steadily declining. Sidebar, Real Housewives of Miami's ratings this week. 200 and something thousand viewers? But here's the thing. Quiet as it's kept, Real Housewives of Miami is the best show that they have in the Real Housewives franchise. They've been consistent for at least 3 seasons since their reboot, and their premiere was stellar. And a lot of people told me that the only reason why they even knew that the new season started was because I recapped the premiere. Mind you, Bravo didn't send me a press release. And look, they don't need to. It's a show I enjoy. But I do have over 500,000 followers on YouTube, over a quarter of a million followers on TikTok. You don't think maybe let's invite Kempire to the premiere party that you guys had in Miami? I'm not asking for these things, but I'm talking about if you really want your show to be successful, wouldn't it be obvious to collaborate with someone that one of the largest audiences that are talking about this show and actually likes this show? I didn't get a screener when it comes to Real Housewives of Miami's premiere, but I'm sure these other people did.
Yup.
Or consistently get screeners in regards to it. I'm not asking for anything, but I'm just talking about the reason why Real Housewives of Miami didn't do well this week with 290,000 viewers for their premiere with a 0.05 in their demo. Look, I'm fair. I'm going to talk about all of the ratings not being great. However, at least with Real Housewives of Atlanta, they had these housewives on Watch What Happens Live. They had them at all the media outlets every single week leading up to this new show in the new season. They didn't do that for Real Housewives of Miami. I don't know why they don't do that, but they didn't do it. Yeah, so Andy Cohen is back. Okay. They said, after more than 20 years with Bravo, I'm full of intense gratitude that I get to continue living out my dream here, Andy said in a statement. I'm excited to keep growing our successes across NBCUniversal's incredible portfolio, and most of all, thankful that I, along with my team, get to keep doing what we love most. Congratulations, Andy. I just wish you would be more of an ally when it comes to some of the other young talent that you have over that's signed as media personalities at NBC Universal. I would just wish that you would highlight those individuals, more specifically the people of color, the black ones, because you are in a position of power. You could literally launch your predecessor, but your ego's too big to do that. And I say that, and this is not, I don't work for NBC Universal. I'm not talking about giving me the job. I don't want the job because I'm not trying to shuck and jive so that you guys can get me to say what you want to say for your reunions. That's why I love having my own platform. I'm talking about the people that do work for NBC Universal. One of them could have hosted these reunions. And I'm not saying that Andy's bad at hosting reunions. Yes, some reunions, yes. But especially when we're talking about Black issues, yeah, we don't need the white overlord moderating those conversations. We've seen how problematic that has been over the years. And I'm going to keep saying it. I don't care. All of y'all are like, oh, Daddy Andy. Okay. And Injustice Anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. It's not you today, but it can be you in whatever marginalized community you're from tomorrow. Let me talk about Monique Samuels. So here's the thing with Monique. Monique was on live the other day, and she was answering questions as to why she decided to return to Real Housewives of Potomac. Because she has said in so many interviews over the years that she doesn't want to return to reality television. On her last season, she had told Andy about that little check, and everyone's like, oh, now she's back for that little check. To me, it makes sense for Monique to return because her life has changed dramatically over the last few years. She's gotten a divorce. She's now a single mother. And she didn't get, not that she was trying to get, but she didn't get some sort of, she's not getting alimony from Chris. She got like a lump sum. And word on the street is that with that lump sum, she bought the house that she's living in now. So fine. In this live, though, that she did, she says her essential oil business is doing extremely well. She's working on a book. And I was like, oh, so you want to promote stuff. Monique is about her money. And I can appreciate a smart businesswoman. But I want to remind you what Monique said about production and the network back in December of 2024. Shout out to our friends over at The Reality Rundown and my friend Taria from the What Else Is Going podcast, because she reminded me of what Monique said. Because I already told you, Monique will tell you some truth and tell you a lie at the same time. So this is what Monique said back in December of 2024 in an interview. I think it was on Fox there in the DMV.
And listen, I was ready to unleash and unload, and they didn't show half of what was done. To this day, I still recall certain things that...
Monique is talking about what happened during the season 5 reunion. And I remember her talking about this back then, that a lot of what happened at this reunion, including a meltdown from Giselle Bryant, they did not show. And that was part of her motivation for not returning.
Or that happened that weren't shown. Like there was this one point where after the binder, the biggest memory that I have and the thing that I hate that they didn't show with Giselle, she was so upset and she was so quiet after lunch, like had nothing to say. When Chris came out and pretty much read her, she lost it and she just blurted out, F you! She like lost it and they never showed it, but she lost it. And I was like, that pretty much summed up, you know, why I left, because they were constantly protecting the people who should have been exposed and show who they really are on and off camera. And they kept these protections for people to the extent of not even protecting, you know, my innocent children and those whole narratives that they were trying to point out. And it just got me to a point where I was just like, you know what, I don't have to deal with this. This is too much. And I decided to walk away.
Why do you think that pick and choose protection, if that's what it was there in the first place?
Well, if you're a puppet master, you're going to keep your puppets. So the ones that you can control, the ones that you can get to do what you want them to do, you're going to keep those people. But the ones who speak up like me and say, no, that's not me. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that. We're the ones that get the hardest time because we're not doing what they want us to do. We're not creating the show that they want. We're still trying to maintain a sense of who we are.
So here's the thing. She referred to production, the network, as the puppet master, and of course Giselle as a puppet. She also talked about how she felt like they did not protect her children. So you return to a platform that you accuse of being puppet masters? I find that to be interesting. But let's take a look as to what Monique had to say about why she decided to return, because she says they asked her multiple times, because people still speculate that Monique was fired. Word on the street, she was not fired. They definitely were open to her returning. She still had a good relationship with the network. They even wanted her to do Ultimate Girls Trip at one particular point, according to her.
Since I've been gone, every time I've been asked, I've been like, no. Even this year, like literally, I said I declined probably a good 7 times. And then something happened. Something changed. And I was just like, I'm not the person that I was. And a lot of the reasons that I said no was because of the person that I was, you know? And I'm not her anymore. So, what better way to test my healing? But no, for real, I have been running from the platform that gave me a foundation out here in these streets. And when I really thought about it, what was keeping me from returning was a lot of fear, and it was also a lot of PTSD, you know? I was built way different then. I'm built a little better now. And giving everything that I have going on in my life between my business, Millie of Essentials, which has been extremely successful, and then also my book that I've been working on, which for anyone who's been following me consistently, y'all know I've been talking about my book for like at least 2 years now.
And there it is. I think she sees what being on this platform can do for her. Not only because I don't know about the essential oils business. I don't hear people talking about going to, and I'm sure it's fine, but her emphasis on how extremely successful that it's doing, fine. But for me, her return, and look, some might say good for her. That's actually really smart. You have a book that you want to write. I don't know how many people are going to actually buy the book, but who knows? But her, for me, in this moment, I was like, oh, so this is why you decided to return to the puppet master and smile and shuck and jive to be around Giselle. And maybe she won't. Again, we won't know until we see it actually play out. Will there be a sit down that actually is an authentic sit down between Monique and Giselle, and they come to a place where like, oh, I think for the audience, they also need this conversation. They also need to see this healing when it comes to what happened between Candace, Monique, and Giselle. But you're not going to get the piece between Candace and Monique because Candace is not there. Because if you remember during this time, it was very toxic when it comes to the fan base. When you talk about Real Housewives of New Jersey toxic, no, the fans were very divided on the Monique and Candace of it all. So there are still a lot of people saying they don't want to see Monique return. This video is not about how I feel about Monique returning or not returning. I'm okay with Monique returning if her intention is to hawk this book so she can sell some books or some more essential oils. Good for you. I do think that she was a very critical part. She left on a very high note of her time on Real Housewives of Potomac. So it will be interesting to see her return and to see this quote unquote growth. I don't know, because literally just in December, which is just 6-7 months ago, you were talking the same thing that you've been talking about when it comes to them being the puppet master and puppets and them not protecting you or your children. I just don't know if I would return to a platform that I would accuse of that. But then again, NeNe's ready to return to a platform that she accused them of being racist. So then there's that.
It's been a work in progress. It's also something that's near and dear to me. And I love that you'll not only be able to see the levels of growth that I've achieved when you read my book, but you'll also be able to see it now on TV as well. So I have been able to move past that, and it's my season. I'm stepping into my season. You know, I feel like everything that I've gone through up until this point has been for this moment, and I'm really excited. And yes. I'm not worried. You know, I'm like, I put my ego in check a long time ago. I put my ego in check during Love and Marriage DC. How about that? But I've grown so much, and I know who I am, you know, and I have nothing to prove.
And for those of us that did watch Love and Marriage DC, I think that with her leaving on such a high note for Real Housewives of Potomac, she left Love and Marriage DC on a low note. I think a lot of people were reminded what they didn't like necessarily about Monique or Monique's relationship with Chris. And she didn't like how she was depicted. We talked about that. We're not going to revisit that, but she talked about that. She said that Carlos did her worse than Bravo did her, and said that he tried to lure her in on the black card. I know we're talking about Carlos, but when you notice a pattern of behavior, and Carlos has his own pattern of behavior, but I'm also noticing a pattern of behavior when it comes to Monique. I'm open to seeing what she's going to offer us in this new season 10 of Real Housewives of Potomac. But I will always have both my good eyes on Monique this season, and to see how authentic she will show up. Again, she's only coming in as a friend of this season, so there won't be a lot that we will necessarily get from her. But will it be enough? We shall see. Guys, as always, I want to know your reaction to some of these Bravo updates on this Friday 13th. What do you feel? How do you feel about Andy returning for a few more years on the network? How do you feel about Real Housewives of Miami's very, very low ratings? What do you think about this Traitors cast? And what do you think about Monique and what she had to say about being asked to return to the franchise multiple times, 7 times, she says. Let's continue this conversation in the comment section. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Thanks for watching.
Here we go now.